Hei alle sammen, jeg kan egentlig ikke se dere, men ja, jeg hørte det var en god del av dere, så jeg håper at i kveld blir ganske bra. Jeg er veldig giret på å prate om Ayahuasca og 5-MeO DMT i dag. Så ja, først og fremst vil jeg ønske alle sammen velkommen, og også takke Emma og Sofie for å lage til dette arrangementet. Uten de hadde det ikke vært mulig. Jeg heter Malin, og som dere kan høre, så er jeg fra Bergen. Men ja, litt om meg. Jeg flyttet til Praha når jeg var rett ferdig på videregående, og så begynte jeg på bachelorgraden min da. Jeg gikk på University of New York in Prague. Etter 4 år der flyttet jeg til Maastricht, der jeg fortsatte videre på mastergraden. Og mens jeg var der så skrev jeg da masteroppgave om Ayahuasca, som jeg også kommer til å prate litt om senere. Videre så ble jeg tilbudt en doktorgrad ved Maastricht også, så nå jobber jeg for det universitetet, samt et sykehus i Barcelona, der Jordi Reba jobber, som jeg også kommer til å snakke litt om senere. Men ja, jeg vet ikke om Jørn opplyste det, men jeg tror at kanskje han sa det. Men i hvert fall, presentasjonen i kveld, den blir på engelsk, fordi at norsken min er ikke den samme som den var 5-6 år siden. Og det er litt vanskelig for meg å artikulere meg mer korrekt. Det er liksom lettere å snakke på engelsk enn på norsk, i hvert fall om dette. Så ja, jeg tror jeg bare switcher over nå. Men jeg skal bare teste først om det går an å dele skjerm her. Skal vi se. Oi sann. Kan alle sammen se dette nå? Jørn, kan du gi meg en lyd? Det funker greit? Ok. Ja, men da tar jeg deg ned her, og så bare kjører jeg løpet ut. Ser dere kun skjermen eller meg også? Ok. Ja, men da switcher vi over på engelsk da. So some of you wrote in the event that you had some questions that I should address regarding risks and toxicity of Ayahuasca or 5-MeO DMT. I will try my best to talk about this throughout the presentation, but if there are any questions when I finish, then we will have a question and answer section. So then feel free to ask me anything then. Before I continue, I'd like to make sure that this is not propaganda for Ayahuasca or 5-MeO DMT. It's simply meant to be educational, and I hope that you learned something tonight. So let's get started. So the agenda for tonight, I'll first start by talking a little bit about Ayahuasca, and then I'll move on to talking about 5-MeO DMT. And I'll mention a few topics later on which I think is of importance, and namely the dark sides of shamanism, the benefit-enhancing strategies when you're taking psychedelics and so on, and what I think will happen in the future, and then finally we'll have a question and answer section, or like a question and attempted answers. So I'll do my best. Well, what is Ayahuasca? Ayahuasca is a psychotropic tea that you can find in the Amazon, like the northwestern part of the Amazon. And it's basically made out of 2 plants. And if we go further into details here, here you see the vine, which is called Baniosteriopsis vine. It's called kapi, usually. And the other one is Psychotria viridis. And we basically combine the vine and the leaves of these plants, boil it together, and then you get ayahuasca. Now, what makes ayahuasca interesting is that the vine contains MAO inhibiting alkaloids, which are harmaline, and tetrahydramine. And harmaline was actually used as an antidepressant before. So this is where the antidepressant effects come from. And Psychotria viridis, it contains DMT. And usually, if you do not have the MAO inhibiting alkaloids, then DMT will not work when you take it. So there will simply be no effect. So the magic of ayahuasca is possible because you're combining it with the MAO. And this allows the DMT to work around in your system and make all this hallucinations, visuals, and whatever not. When it comes to dosage, there was a study by Sanchez and colleague, and they basically used 2.2 milliliters per kilogram. And basically, in my case, like 50 kilos, it will be like 110 milliliters, that like appropriate dosage for me. But it really, really depends on the person, because everybody is different, and people, for example, you might need more or less than me. There is no really a straight answer as to how much you should take. But of course, you need to feel your way around whatever is comfortable, while you still have the effects. Regarding legality, like, it's not really a surprise that it's not legal. And here, this is like an overview of the EU member countries. And basically, you see that DMT is illegal in pretty much all countries. And harmaline, and THH, the MAO inhibiting alkaloid, they are legal somewhere except for France. So that is basically the biggest difference, that France has made DMT and the MAO inhibiting alkaloids illegal. Other than that, it's pretty clear. So yeah, what effects does ayahuasca have? And this is like a question I'm asked a few times, and I can give you two explanations for it. One is the scientific explanation, and another one is the shamanic explanation. So when I was on my internship in Colombia, I was traveling around and I was talking to shamans, and one of them, El Mago, which is one of the most respected shamans in the country, we were having a talk, and I was like, okay, so can you please explain to me what ayahuasca does and how it works? And basically what he told me is that when you drink ayahuasca, you allow the spirits to come within you and pretty much align your body, mind, and spirit. And the purpose of ayahuasca is to basically clean your system psychologically and physiologically. And this is why many people would experience purging, either vomit or diarrhea, when they have ayahuasca. And this is completely normal, and it's just a way of letting go of all the bullshit that is in your body or your mind and just be free of it. And when I tried ayahuasca for the first time, I did end up purging pretty badly at the end of it. But what was surprising was that it was kind of like in combination with some hallucination or visuals. But when I let go of whatever was weighing me down, and I puked, and I could see like in the toilet that the liquid that came out of my body took the shape of like a demon fetus. So, and I flushed it down pretty fast because it was pretty scary. But yeah, so that was the shamanic explanation. And if you think about the scientific explanation, it's basically that ayahuasca has the capability to activate certain areas of your brain and basically restore old memories and let you revisit them, face your fears, and somehow make a different relationship with those bad memories that you had. And that you could make new neural connections. In that sense, if something bothered you before, afterwards, it might not affect you that bad. Now, what do these explanations have in common, and what is the difference between them? So, what they have in common is that they're basically talking about reprogramming, right? The difference is the language that they're using. Like, one is talking more scientific and the other one is talking more like a hippie, right? And the thing is that nobody is really lying. Like, they're all explaining the same thing, just in a different language. And what I've come to realize after my own experience with ayahuasca and the fact that I started practicing as a life coach is that there are many things out there which we cannot explain yet, and many things that might work. And I really think that ayahuasca and other plant medicines or animal medicines, they have a potential to heal, but we're not able to say that for certain yet. Like, we don't know enough, but we're getting there. So, like, you can think about like before, when people thought that when it was thunder outside, it was Thor with the hammer, or that the earth was flat, you know, but things kind of changed. We don't believe in those things anymore. And this is not because, like, basically my point is that reality didn't change, but our understanding of it did. Whoops. So let me see. Oops, it stopped for a moment. Okay, so I'll address a few myths about ayahuasca, like some claims. Is it addictive? No. There's actually no scientific journal stating that it gets people hooked or that you can get addicted to it. On the other hand, I think people could definitely get addicted to the experience of like the psychedelic experience, but not the ayahuasca itself. But actually, on the contrary, ayahuasca has been successfully used for detoxification from other drugs, like heroin or something like this, and tobacco and alcohol. And ayahuasca can kill you. It's another myth. It doesn't, only in large quantities. Now, there are several risks, though, that you might, and let's see. You could actually, in large quantities of ayahuasca, get something called serotonin syndrome. And basically, what happens is that since ayahuasca is already targeting your serotonin receptor in your brain, if you get too much of that, then that could have lethal consequences. Other than that, ayahuasca, in combination with other drugs, could cause issues. So then if you add other substances to the ayahuasca, or you take any other substance before take ayahuasca, this could cause a little bit of problems as well. Also, lack of a supervised setting can be dangerous. And if there is anything in your family about schizophrenia or psychotic depression or mania, or that you've been diagnosed with it yourself, you should avoid ayahuasca. Okay, so another one is that ayahuasca is a quick fix to your problems, that this is this magic formula that is going to heal everything and make your life so much better. The thing is that it's not a quick fix. Ayahuasca can aid in healing, but it's not going to fix you. And this is why the integration that you do is very important. Like, one thing is the ceremony, but what about the work that you're doing afterwards? Are you still continuing like you did before? Or are you actually taking in all the lessons and teachings from the plant into consideration and act on it? So basically, research suggests that it has therapeutic potential. Oops. Whoa, sorry. But we don't know for certain yet. So let me just recap a little bit about previous research on ayahuasca that I used as my literature review for my thesis. So I'll go through a few studies here. One is starting with depression. And basically there was a study by Lama Osario in 2011, which looked at 3 females with depression, and they all got a little bit of ayahuasca. And basically the result of this study was that there was a decrease in depressive symptoms measured by one scale called the Hamilton Depression Scale. And basically there was a reduction starting pretty much at when ayahuasca starts working after 40 minutes. Then you see that it's going down. And there was also a sustained reduction at day 1, which was 79%. And then this persisted until day 14, when it was measured to be 66% below baseline. So the conclusion of this study was basically that ayahuasca has antidepressive properties. Another one is mindfulness. So mindfulness is defined as being particularly aware, present-centered, characterized by openness, acceptance, non-reactance, non-judgmental towards the experience that is occurring in this reality. Soler and colleagues in 2016 did a study where they used this questionnaire called the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, which I'm also using in my studies. But basically this questionnaire is measuring 5 components of mindfulness. So one of them was already mentioned over here, like non-reactance, non-judgment, acceptance, and so forth. But basically what this study found was that there was a increase in non-judgment and non-reactivity. And these are important because if you're not judging your thoughts and you're not reacting to them, then that's much better for people with like OCD, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder, because the thoughts are just there. You're not doing anything about them. You're just letting them float. So the take home from this is that mindfulness-related capacities can be improved by a pharmacological intervention and not only limited to meditation. There is also some research on creativity that was done by my supervisors. And basically, divergent thinking is thinking outside of the box. Convergent thinking is thinking normal thinking, like inside the box, you know? So basically what my supervisors wanted to check was whether ayahuasca have any impact on creativity, specifically divergent thinking. And what they found is that yes, it does have an impact. And they found that actually ayahuasca increases divergent thinking and decreases convergent thinking. And this is again important for people with depression or post-traumatic stress disorder, because usually people with depression or post-traumatic stress disorder, they would tend to focus too much on the problem or whatever thing that is causing them a lot of anxiety or sadness or reoccurring flashbacks. So if you're able to look a little bit further, like if you look at things from perspective and you see other things than that, you might feel more happy. Then there is ego dissolution. I do not know if any of you have heard the term before, but basically ego dissolution means the experience of a compromised self. In other words, ego death. So this is just like a common term that we use, at least in psychedelic research, and generally hippies talk about this a lot. A study by Carhart Harris in 2011, they checked whether psilocybin could induce ego dissolution. So they developed this scale called the Ego Dissolution Inventory, which I'll also talk about a little bit later. But what they found is that psilocybin could in fact induce ego dissolution. And the thing is that during a psychedelic journey, you can see on other studies that if they've used fMRI scans, then you can see a decrease in a part of their brain called the default mode network, which we think might be the seat of the ego. And it's responsible for like self-reflection and all this like egocentric thoughts like, I am this, I am that, you know? And basically, we wanted to look into whether ayahuasca also induces an experience of ego death or ego dissolution. But it probably does, because any other psychedelic on the planet has the capability of doing so as well. So now to my master thesis, which was titled The Long-Term Effects of Ayahuasca on Affect and Creative Thinking. These are my supervisors. This is Jan Rama-Ekers. He is my supervisor from Maastricht University. And this is Jordi Riba. He's well known for heaps of research on ayahuasca and have done a lot in Barcelona, especially lab studies, taking people into the scanners and looking at the effects of their brain. But we also got some other people on board. Dr. Kim van Ossav, Dr. Martin van Boxtel, Dr. Kim Kaipas, and Yvonne Melina Naranjo Marino. She's a good friend of mine, and she's actually one of the reasons I started this project. So since I moved to Colombia, I was staying with her. But yeah, if it wasn't for her, this project wouldn't be possible, because she has been like the main connection to pretty much all of the shamans that we worked with in Colombia. So the aim of the study was to assess subacute and long-term effects of ayahuasca on affect and cognitive thinking style in participants of ayahuasca ceremonies, and also whether these effects depended on the degree of ego dissolution that was experienced during the ceremony. So for this, I moved to Colombia for 4 months. And here you can see me and Yvonne, and this is from like a location outside of Bogota, and it's in the jungle, and this is the Maloca, the ceremonial house that they use for the ayahuasca ceremonies. This is the shaman, Mauricio. He's one of the shamans that we work with, and these are all participants. And here are some more photos. Here you see a participant filling out the test battery. This is from the first ceremony we did in Bucaramanga, which is another part of Colombia in a different location. Here is another shaman, Rolando, and Yvonne and me. And of course, like at each location, we got samples of ayahuasca that we were going to analyze in the lab. And this is Bucaramanga also. So these photos are all from the same place. And this is also where I took ayahuasca myself for the first time. So you're basically, this place is up on a mountain in Bucaramanga, and it's like in the jungle, so you're surrounded by nature, and it's really, really beautiful. And Rolando, this guy, and some of his helpers, like this guy, they are really, really nice. Like they're always playing music and singing the Icaros, the songs that they usually sing in ayahuasca ceremonies to somehow guide the spirits, and yeah, let you enjoy the ride. And here is a list of the measures and tasks that we used. So I mentioned earlier ego dissolution, and the ego dissolution inventory was developed by Nur. Like, these are all citations from the different references that I used in my literature review. So if you want to look it up later, you can have a look at that. You can find it on Google, Google Scholar, whatever you use. And then the second one was the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, which is measuring the mindfulness-related capacities. A third questionnaire was about depression, anxiety, and stress symptoms. And the fourth one was about satisfaction with life. And then there was a picture concept test, which was basically a slideshow of different photos containing different items, whereby people had to basically combine these items together and tell us why. So it could be like a photo of a like a sun and a pool and a car and, like, I don't know, a leaf. And then basically the first question would be, what is the correct answer? And in this case, it would be the sun and the pool because it's warm and so forth. And then the second question would be, what other combinations do you see? And this is where we measure divergent thinking, when people have to think outside of the box and not think of and not go for the most obvious and correct answer. And the other questionnaires were basically just self-reports, like stating, I don't know, like there's an item on the ego dissolution inventory asking like, or stating like, I felt at one with the universe, and then you have to give a rating from 0 to 100. And the other ones are basic questions with which they answered on a Likert scale ranging from like 0 or 1 to like 4 or 5. But if you're interested in this, you have the citations and you can look at the individual questionnaires yourself. Other than the questionnaires, we also asked for demographics. We asked for like the location where the ceremony took place, where people were from, gender, what education they have, whether it was bachelor, master, PhD, or just high school. And we also asked about previous experience with ayahuasca and other drugs. We asked for their birthday, which was used as their participant number, whether they were on any medication, and if they were diagnosed with any sort of mental health issue. And also like an open-ended question, like what were the person's intention to come to the ceremony. And basically we distributed these questionnaires 3 times. So once before the start of the ceremony, one time again the day after, and then again 4 weeks after. So 4 weeks would then be long-term effects. And the results are actually being typed up at the moment. I'm sorry I cannot talk about it. I really wish I could, but I was told by my supervisor not to mention anything because we are waiting for the journal to approve the study once I finish it next week. So maybe, I don't know, we can organize another seminar or something like this. Or you can simply like my page, Loving Gratitude, and I'll probably post a link to the study once it's published. So I talked a lot about ayahuasca now, and I think it's time to move on to the part where I talk about 5-MeO DMT. So what is 5-MeO DMT? Well, it's another psychedelic substance. But a question I get a lot is, and it's probably also why people are so confused, because 5-MeO DMT has DMT in it, right? So people automatically think it's just like a level up from DMT, but that's not the case. They are very different. So you can imagine having to choose from two different experiences. One of them is highly visual, and you might come in contact with entities or those mechanical elves that Terence McKenna are talking about. Or the other option is this one, which is more, I don't know, full of just light. You enter this tunnel and you see only white light, and the eye completely disappears. You have complete ego dissolution. If you look at the molecule, they are very different. Like here is DMT, and this is 5-MeO DMT. Now the difference here is this part. Basically, 5-MeO DMT has an additional MEO group at the 5th position. Now I'm not the brightest person when it comes to neuroscience, so this is all I'm gonna say about the chemistry. But for those of you who are interested, that's the answer I can give you. So to sum that up, both are tryptamines, both are psychedelics. 5-MeO DMT is way more powerful or potent than DMT. It requires a lower dose. And 5-MeO DMT is super different from DMT. So you can think of it as like, it's as different from DMT as psilocybin is. A little bit about the history of 5-MeO DMT. It was synthesized in Japan in 1936. It was found in a plant, I don't know how to say that properly, but yeah, there you go, in 1958. And in 1968, it was detected in the glands of Bufo alvarius, which we'll be talking about on the next slide, I think. And then it was found in the cerebrospinal fluid, and thus joined DMT as the only known entheogens, endogenous entheogen. So basically, endogenous means that it has an internal cause or origin. So 5-MeO DMT and DMT you can find in your own body and in plants and in Bufo alvarius. And Bufo alvarius is basically the Sonaran Desert toad that you see here on this photo. And basically, 5-MeO DMT can be found in the glands of it, in these ones. So if you capture it, you can like skirt out the liquid that are in these glands onto like a mirror, and then you dry it, and then you can basically smoke it. A little bit about the dosage. So yeah, those who are bigger do not need more. And here is like a little bit of, just to give you a little bit of an idea what the different dosages would give you. So if you take like 5 milligrams, it can give you lightweightness and increased perception. 10 milligrams will be mild shifting of awareness and mindfulness. 20 milligrams would be energetic vibratory effects. And 50 milligrams would be magnetic energetic activation, partial ego dissolution, and energetic visuals. And 100 milligram would be full entheogenic experience. When I spoke to my friend Rafael Lancelotta about this, he basically pointed out that this is not really accurate. And I agree, because from what I've seen and heard at ceremonies that I've attended myself, both for data collection and personal experience, has been that it really depends on the person. Like I said with ayahuasca, it's about sensitivity, like with food and all of this. So Like Rafael pointed out, like even a person who took maybe 30 milligrams could have a complete entheogenic experience. So about administration of this, this is The Simpsons. I don't know if anybody saw this episode, but this is a common misconception about how you should take 5-MeO DMT. So basically, you should not lick the frog. You should actually take the 5-MeO DMT that you harvested from the toad, put it in a glass pipe, and then heat it up with a torch lighter. That's how it's done. So just to make it clear, no toad licking, and yes to the glass pipe. Okay. About the effects of 5-MeO DMT, like it basically gives you a dissolution into fractals. Like in my opinion, or in my experience actually, when I had 5-MeO DMT, what happened was that the moment when I started smoking the vapor, it took like a few seconds, and I saw the entire vision of mine like slowly dissolving into fractions, and everything just disappeared. And another effect of it is that you have the sensation of being transported by a white light super fast in through a tunnel, and that's about it. And I can confirm that that's true because I remember just seeing everything dissolving into fractals and then being launched into this white light that just came towards me. And after I don't remember much. And the third effect that it could have is that you feel one with the universe. Like that's basically the summary of this. And you're basically one with everything and nothing at the same time. And you have a complete disintegration of ego and personality, and the dissolution of all that is, and the resonance with oneness, God, and absolute consciousness. A fifth effect is the restructuring of all the parts that constitute the individual, the reinsertion of the ego, meaning that you're coming back to this world and then you're sort of like seeing everything for the first time again. A sixth effect is a repossession of the physical body and the dispassion of the effects of 5-MeO DMT. So it's basically just coming back, going back into your body, getting grounded, and all of that things. And you also experience a period of intermediary resonance between the two worlds and the complete return to the normal state prior to the experience. Now that's a lot of information, so I'll cut it down for you. The two keywords that you need to know here is ego dissolution. 5-MeO DMT gives you that more than anything else. And I think the reason for this is, like with ayahuasca and other psychedelics, you are still kind of here. You're still you, the I, and that I could still be in control, steering the experience somehow. But with 5-MeO DMT, you don't have a chance. It's seconds and you're launched off. And of course, another keyword is love. With 5-MeO DMT, you experience unconditional love, and it's beautiful. Like the body orgasm, or like, I don't know, love orgasm that I had when I also smoked it was incredible, and it truly gave me an illustration of the words that the shaman had told me the day before at data collection. Like it was with Octavio Rettig, which is known for giving 5-MeO DMT to people around the world, and we were on location one day, And I was like watching everybody smoke it and come back all happy and really at peace. And I walked over to him and I'm like, Octavio, like what is happening here is amazing, you know, like what you're doing is really great. And he's like, no, Malin, like this is us. We are all doing it together because we are all one. And this is truly what the 5-MeO DMT experience illustrated for me, that we are all one. Like I am you, you and I, we're all one. We're the universe. Okay, as with everything, there are toxicity and risks. Is 5-MeO DMT lethal? Yes, if you take enough of it. Now, if you would take 400 milligrams per kilo, that would be, so if you're 80 kilo and you take 32 grams of 5-MeO DMT, you might be in trouble. And it's also a waste to take that much because, as I mentioned earlier, like 5-MeO DMT is super potent. You don't need a lot of it. And also, as I mentioned with ayahuasca, there is a risk of serotonin syndrome. If you have too much serotonin in your brain, this could have lethal consequences. And of course, you remember earlier I mentioned that one of the plants in ayahuasca are MAO inhibiting alkaloids. So this is why you should never take ayahuasca with 5-MeO DMT in it, because it really, the 5-MeO DMT prolongs, the MAO inhibiting alkaloids prolongs the effect of the 5-MeO DMT. And this can cause serotonin syndrome. So this is why it's not really a good idea to combine it. And there have been cases where this had happened, and these were written journals, like case studies. So now we know that this is not a good idea. A little bit about legality of the legality status of 5-MeO DMT in different countries. In Denmark, is legally restricted to medical or scientific purposes. And in Belgium, it is not controlled under Belgian law, even though DMT is. In Germany, it has the highest level of control. And Sweden, it was also controlled in Sweden. I believe it's the same for Norway as well. But yeah, this is just to give you a little bit of an idea of how the differences are in Europe about this. And also, for example, in Prague, in Czech Republic, 5-MeO DMT is not illegal, but we're hoping that it won't be illegal in the future either. Yeah. A little bit about the therapeutic potential of 5-MeO DMT. Since I mentioned a little bit about ayahuasca, I can give a little bit of information about 5-MeO as well. Now, there isn't a lot of research about 5-MeO DMT because the medicine is pretty new, so we're still working on it. But there was a little study from last year on mini brains. So basically, they would add 5-MeO DMT, and they could see that 5-MeO DMT could inhibit death of cells and brain lesions and inflammations, and that it could also induce neuroplasticity. And that's really good. And it could also be used as treatment for depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addiction. Because basically what it triggers is a major downregulation in a receptor involved in the reward mechanism of drug use. And there was, I think in this study, they were doing it on mice. And basically what happened is that they would give 5-MeO DMT to the mice and then check whether or not they would go for cocaine or alcohol. And in this study, basically what happened is that the mice were less likely to self-administer cocaine and ethanol. Moreover, 5-MeO DMT has shown less symptoms of nicotine withdrawal, so it's easier to get rid of the cigarettes. So that was a little bit about the therapeutic potential, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the dark sides of shamanism, like ayahuasca, 5-MeO DMT, psilocybin, and any other psychedelic you can come up with are becoming increasingly more popular. And some people might take advantage of it. But yeah, so basically last year in April, I was speaking to one of the most respected shamans of the country, El Mago, and I asked him, like, how is it that there are so many problems caused by ayahuasca? Like, is it the medicine or is it something else? And basically he told me that what could happen, now this is a hippie explanation, not a scientific one, but basically he said that what can happen when the shaman is making ayahuasca, for example, is that whatever motivation he has to give this to somebody else can be somehow absorbed into the brew. So if the guy or woman is after profit and only wants to lure people, or then this could cause some bad trips. And this was his explanation as to why some people will have a bad trip on ayahuasca. But there's truth to it. Like, many shamans out there, I would call them neo-shamans, are not proper. Like, they're after profit and not healing. And another dark side is that if you don't give proper care to the participant that is going to drink ayahuasca or smoke 5-MeO DMT before, during, and after the ceremony, this person might have a little bit of course, anxiety before the ceremony. If you haven't, as a shaman, informed them about what is going to happen, how are you going to do it, and also if you're not taking care of the participant during the actual trip, and if you're not there for them afterwards, then I think many people can be left with a lot of questions about what happened, or if they just want to talk a little bit about what happened, then the shaman should be there for them. Another dark side is attempting to be a shaman when you're actually not. Taking the medicine once does not make you an expert, yet there are many people out there that believe so. And I've been in contact with one of them. Like, I'm not going to mention any name or point any fingers, but when I was preparing for my master thesis and started to look for shamans to work with, I had like interviews with them just to like see how their energy was and really talk to them about their motivation for giving ceremonies. And I realized that there are so many people out there who have no fucking clue what they're doing. And that is really, really sad, and it's causing a lot of bad things. Like, people are getting into situations that they shouldn't have been with. And anyway, so another thing is rape. There has been cases reported whereby shamans have been taking advantage of women during the influence of ayahuasca and raped them. And it should not be like that, because people are so vulnerable in that moment when they're under the influence of ayahuasca. And if the shaman is then taking advantage of this situation, that's really bad. Like, I've heard stories about a shaman saying that it's gonna help them get through the journey if they have sex together, which is completely insane. And finally, there is also death, because if a shaman adds something to the brew that shouldn't be there, or does not take a proper screening of the participant before they do the ceremony, then that can also cause a lot of issues. Not all of this is just some points that I wanted to mention today, but all of them have consequences, and that is that there are a lot of false rumors out there about what ayahuasca can do and what it can't, and also about 5-MeO DMT. So I just wanted to address it a little bit, and I could go into much further detail, but there is no time, and my focus today was more to give a little bit of insight to the therapeutic effects of ayahuasca and 5-MeO DMT. But there will be coming a little article on this soon, so I'll post it on my page. But yeah, stay tuned for that one. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, if you want to take ayahuasca and 5-MeO DMT, there are certain things that you can do in order to benefit the most from it. The first is research your medical history. Like, if there is something in your family, you or anybody else who has, for example, cardiovascular disease, schizophrenia, mania, anything like this, then you should avoid both medicines. But the first thing you do, look into your medical history. And the second is control for the 6 S's. Look into your mindset. Is this the right time for you? Are you under a lot of stress at the moment? Or are you at peace, and could you handle something like ayahuasca and 5-MeO DMT? Think about the surroundings. Like, where would you do it? Is it a ceremony? Where is the ceremony taking place? Do you feel comfortable? And so on. How long is the session? Like, the general timing of your trip. And who is it that is going to take care of you? Like, really, this one is really important. Like, as I mentioned earlier, with the shamans having bad intentions and everything, like, do your research on the shaman. Like, figure out who he or she is and make sure he or she is not going to screw you over. And really ask them, like, why are you working with the medicine? Like, why did you start doing this? And listen to your consciousness, because that's where you'll find the answer. Listen to your heart and feel what is right. One person might recommend you that shaman, but if you talk to him or her and you don't feel good about it, that's fine. Don't go for it. Because picking the right shaman is really, really important. And also regarding the situation, like, do you have time to integrate after the ceremony? Because this is not something that should be taken easily. Like, one thing is the ceremony, but another thing is how you take all those lessons and the teachings into consideration afterwards. The ceremony is only a little part of it. The integration is the biggest, in my opinion. And then, of course, lastly is the substance. Like, how much are you gonna take? Okay, so what do I think will happen in the future? Regarding psychedelics, of course, there's going to be heaps of more research. Like, there is so much things to do. There are so many questions we as researchers have that needs an answer to. And right now, we are basically pretty much limited because of the legality status of ayahuasca and 5-MeO DMT, we need to basically lay a foundation of evidence. So this is why we can only do observational studies, such as what I did in Colombia. And then when we gather enough evidence from this, we might be able to move forward to lab studies. And from there, you might be able to negotiate if you show evidence that are deemed appropriate enough that, hey, you know, government, you know, like this stuff actually helps and we've seen X, Y, Z, and you can refer to studies. And hopefully this will be enough to convince them. But this is far into the future. Well, not too far, I hope. Also, we need new measures because, you know, like you cannot really measure energy. There are many things that we cannot measure, like intuition, I don't know, love, all of this. And this is a huge part of ayahuasca and 5-MeO DMT ceremonies. Like there are many things there that you cannot simply measure by using a scanner or just a simple questionnaire. So we need different tools. And I also think that we are giving a lot of authority to science. Like, just because something was written in a journal, we automatically take it as a fact, and we kind of like do not look at other sources of knowledge, such as personal experience. So I think we need to start listening a little bit to other things than just science. And finally, I think it's important that we realize that our current model in society is not sufficient. The way we are handling, I don't know, depression with antidepressants, you know, like those do not have proper effect. And actually, doctors are good at prescribing them, but they don't really know how to get people off of them. So we could need new tools to help people that suffer from mental health disorders. And I want to end this talk by some final words. But first, I'll show you this quote. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. I believe that the world really needs a change. Like I said a few seconds ago, like the current treatment tools for people with mental health disorders are not good enough. They're not working properly. And like I said, doctors can prescribe antidepressants, but they don't really know how to get people off of them, at least not to my knowledge. I haven't seen any journal looking into how to taper people off of antidepressants. So I think that's something that should be done. Anyways, I think if these medicines, ayahuasca or 5-MeO DMT, if research shows that it's beneficial, then I hope that it could be legalized, because it could be beneficial for so many people out there. And I personally wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for ayahuasca. I also don't think banning these medicines is harm reduction, it's ignorance. And I do believe that, I do feel that these medicines hold great potential of healing. And I hope that my studies and that of others in the future could convince the government that they are actually good tools that we should implement in what we're currently offering patients with mental health disorders. So to conclude, I believe that these medicines are the way home, in a way. Home to a society which is not driven by money, ego, where the matrix is broken down, and where we are all living as one.